Welcome! Today's topic is the principles of public administration. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the principles of public administration that are both implicit and explicit. And we'll focus more on the principles related to bidding processes, how to relate them to the progress of some public works, and how, many times, this process offers these principles. Let's get to the lesson, everyone. When we work on formulating a government plan, we deal with the government we have, the government we want, and how to get to the government we want. That's where government plans and projects came up. And we mentioned that projects often impact legality, the legal basis, which is very important in the realm of public business, folks. So, for that reason, the principle of public administration is related to administrative rights. Look, we have within the principles of public administration the implicit principles. We had a list of them. And now we're going to touch on the first one, the supremacy of the public interest. It means that all public interest is above any personal private interest. Also, in the case of motivation, we need to have projects that need to be done, not just whims of administrators showcasing a project that isn't a desire or need of the population. And in the case of unavailability or power, duty, what does that mean? It's about having a project or a case of public interest where you extend that case to private interest. That's not the case. We shouldn't do that. Everyone. The explicit principles. In total, there are 5 explicit principles. Legality, impersonality, morality, publicity, and efficiency. Within the explicit principles, we have several that relate to the principles of bidding, which is our focus here, our topic. We're going to focus more on the principles of bidding. So, one of them that isn't part of the bidding principle, I'll mention something, which is efficiency. Let's go. The principle of efficiency relates to good administration. A good administrator has to have an eye for the proper use of resources. Also, do a standardized job. He has to train the staff, the public servants, so that they are competent in performing their duties. And finally, the reduction of costs in the public sector. That's how good administrator acts in the public sector, folks. Notice that the principles of bidding are outlined in Law 866 of 93 that regulates the bidding for administrative contracts and brings a range of principles to be followed by the administration in achieving administrative propriety, which is doing the right thing in public administration. Now let's focus on the main subject of our theme. It's the part about the principles of bidding. There are a total of 8, and most of them are already included in the explicit principles. So now we're going to go through each one, talk about them. Morality, illicit enrichment, waste of public money, committing fraud in public competitions, although this case isn't strongly related to the bidding principle, but it's something we can't overlook. And also failing to account for public services, folks. The principle, legality. All legal grounding relates to public administration. That's how projects get interrupted, because they lack constitutionality, right? So, that's the subject. We need to pay a lot of attention to this part, everyone. Impersonality. The agent responsible for the bidding cannot let personal issues influence them during the legislative process. He has to keep in mind that he's not seeing a face. He doesn't know who is there. It's the legislative process that takes precedence over the personal, and he must act as a representative of the administration. The principle of isonomy. equality, equal treatment for everyone, not making discriminations, is an aspect of using the spirit of equality. The principle, publicity. All interested parties must have access to the bids through the disclosure of the actions taken by the administrators. And here, folks, we're going to mention something that will show some projects and works that had issues with their continuity. In total, you see, of the 50 greatest works that we have in the world, 14. They are in Brazil, and you will see which 14 of them are, and the details why the works were interrupted, and the problems that occurred within the construction market, construction management interviewed on that occasion on May 3rd by the Ministry of Planning and the governments of Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, and through the journalist. This is interesting for you to see, because you will learn about the details. So look, in Brazil we had 6 mega projects: the World Cup stadiums, the Belo Monte hydroelectric plant, the transposition of the São Francisco River, the ring road, the monorail, and the Angra 3 nuclear power plant. All of them are related to the projects that are either completed today, some of them, and others still to be finished. Folks, let's move on. Here is a representation of 9 major projects that have or had serious irregularities. Each of them, you see, has already happened in a stadium in the Brazilian states in Piauí. We have Rio Grande do Sul, Alagoas, Pernambuco, Ceará, and Amazonas. All these projects had problems that we've already mentioned regarding violating the principles of public administration. Some of the principles that were violated include morality, a principle against illicit enrichment, and this issue of wasting public money. Right, there are others that are related to the bids. For example, bidding processes that were interrupted because a company thought it could participate technically and it was discriminated against. See, that affected isonomy, the principle of public administration, isonomy and equality. Right, folks. So each of the events that interrupted the projects is related to each principle of public administration that we mentioned, folks. We'll wrap up this topic here. And the topic for the next class is about the structure of power in Brazil. Don't say, okay, folks,